If you're a smoker or vapor ready to make a change, you really only need one good reason. But with Zyn nicotine pouches, you'll discover many good reasons. Zyn is America's #1 nicotine pouch brand. Plus, Zyn offers a robust rewards program. There are lots of options when it comes to nicotine satisfaction. But there's only one Zyn. Check out Zyn.com/find to find Zyn at a store near you. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Hello and welcome to 31 Days of Terror 2025, and we are on day number 10. And I've got 3 spooky stories for you today, and story number 1 comes from Mia. Earlier this summer, my sweet boyfriend treated us to a nice staycation at the luxurious and historical Lafayette Hotel in the North Park neighborhood here in San Diego, California for my birthday. It was truly exhilarating with its unique design, gaudy aesthetic and fabulous amenities, like a built-in bowling alley, nightclub, nostalgic diner, beautiful cafe, glamorous pool and indoor and outdoor bars. According to its history, it was built in 1946 and regularly visited by various Hollywood stars and musicians such as Frank Sinatra and Ava Gardner. There's a reason people love to come to the Lafayette, whether they are from out of town or just a few blocks away. Although I had visited the lobby once before, this was my first time staying there overnight. My boyfriend went all out and booked us 2 nights in one of the bungalows, so we had an entire 2-bedroom, 2-story unit all to ourselves. I had done a tiny bit of research before we arrived, because I'm very curious about ghosts and the like, but I was careful not to dive too deep, as I didn't want to scare myself and end up not being able to sleep either night. I learned that many folks had reported strange experiences at the hotel, and that it was rumoured to be haunted, complete with its own resident ghost. I'm writing in to share 2 sort of strange things that I experienced. It was never anything too spooky, but just enough to make me wonder. The first thing is that my boyfriend told me that when he checked in, the temperature in the bungalow had been set to about 55 degrees. Naturally, he took it upon himself to adjust it to a much more comfortable level, about 70 degrees, so that by the time I arrived after work, it was good. That first night, we slept fine, but when I got up in the early hours of the morning to use the bathroom, I noticed that the bungalow was really cold. I checked the thermostat in the hallway and it had been reset somehow to 55 degrees. I raised it back up and didn't think too much of it at the time. I assumed that it was just the default temperature that the staff had set, or maybe it was an electrical issue. But for some reason, this only occurred the first night. The second night, it remained at about 70 degrees. The other thing was a little spookier and much harder to explain. During our second night there, we had both fallen asleep on our cosy king-sized bed. My boyfriend on the far end and me on the side closer to the bedroom door. I suddenly awoke to a slight but very noticeable shake at the foot of the bed on my side. I figured my boyfriend needed to use the bathroom and had gotten up and crossed right in front of the foot of the bed to get to the door. It was a narrow space between the bed and the desk, so it would have made perfect sense if he had run into the bed while he was walking, especially being groggy in the dark. But when I opened my eyes, he was still in the exact same spot on his side of the bed, passed out and snoring away. I was overcome with panic and started wishing that we were back at his apartment so I could just blame the whole thing on his cat, who gets restless in the middle of the night and regularly wakes me up with her zoomies. But she wasn't in this hotel with us, so what could it have been? I thought maybe it could have been a neighbour shutting a door very hard or a big truck passing by. But why would the shaking sensation have been localised to such a specific part of the bed? I spent the rest of the night wide awake, trying to fall back asleep, determined to leave the television on until the sun came up, and resenting my heavy sleeper boyfriend who never noticed any of it. So for people wondering, because I was like, what the heck is 55 degrees? 55 degrees is about 12 degrees Celsius. And then 70 degrees is about 20 degrees Celsius. So, I'm going to say props to your boyfriend for being a little dote and for booking the little stay, but also making sure that it was warm enough for when you got there. That is very sweet. It's just nice and thoughtful, isn't it? And I've realised, as I've said that dote, I don't think is a word that is used as a noun in many other places. So a dote in Ireland is somebody who is just very sweet and lovely, very cute. And I do love those classic old hotels, those beautiful historical places where, they have a really rich history and lots of stars have stayed there, and inevitably they end up with a trillion ghost stories and people having weird experiences. But I also agree with you, Mia. Like, I don't want to be deep diving into all of the weird stories about places before I go, because I don't want to scare myself in the middle of the night, especially if I'm going for leisure. If I'm just going for a nice night away, I don't want to be lying there wide-eyed in the middle of the night going, this is the room where the white lady is seen all the time. I don't want to do that. I just want to go and have a nice time. And it does sound like something in that hotel room in that little bungalow was trying to get your attention, putting the thermostat down so that you'd be chilly, shaking the bottom of the bed. And you, of course, obviously you try and rationalize these things when they happen, right? You hear something happening and you go, oh, it's obviously just my boyfriend. He's got up and he's, walked into the bed frame accidentally. But no, sounds like something was trying to get your attention, and I love it. And the reason I say that I love it is because it's not like horrifying. It didn't ruin your nice stay, but it's just things that make you go, oh, that was interesting.
Take control of the numbers and supercharge your small business with Xero. That's Xero. With our easy-to-use accounting software with automation and reporting features, you'll spend less time on manual tasks and more time understanding how your business is doing. 87% of surveyed U.S. customers agree Xero helps improve financial visibility. Search Xero with an X or visit xero.com/ACAST to start your 30-day free trial. Conditions apply.
If you're a smoker or vapor ready to make a change, you really only need one good reason. But with Zyn nicotine pouches, you'll discover many good reasons. Zyn is America's #1 nicotine pouch brand. Plus, Zyn offers a robust rewards program. There are lots of options when it comes to nicotine satisfaction. But there's only one Zyn. Check out zyn.com/find to find Zyn at a store near you. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Every day there's a new challenge to face. So meet Trimble, the technology company that connects your physical and digital worlds, allowing you to make decisions and take intelligent action to get the hard work done. And the best part, you can do it all faster than you've ever thought possible. Check them out at Trimble.com. You ready to turn data points into decision points or turn deadlines into finish lines? How about turning possibilities into profits? Then turn to Trimble.
And our second story today comes from Cal. I was about 16, so 12 years ago, and I was in bed one night. The dog had his water bowl at the top of our stairs and I could hear him drinking out of it. I looked over and noticed he was actually down by the side of my bed. So I tried to let my eyes adjust to see what was drinking out of the bowl. The only way I can describe what I saw was a spider-like creature with human limbs as its legs, which fucking terrified me. But similar to the other Hatman stories, I was unable to move or scream or anything. Soon after seeing this, with it still being there, I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Unable to look away, I saw the figure of the Hatman climb the stairs, grab whatever this thing was and pull it down the stairs. Then he came back up to the top, turned to look into my parents' room, then walked into my room and stood motionless at the end of my bed for what seemed like hours. The only way to describe him is a tall man, over 6 foot easy, with a wide-brimmed hat. I only ever saw him the once, but once it was just him and no human spider crossbreed thing. I felt at ease, just unable to sleep, as if he wanted me to watch him as he was watching me. After what felt like hours, he simply turned around, walked down the stairs, and I never saw him again. Okay, so we've got a Hatman story where he seems to be doing something protective. I mean, it's interesting, right? And there's going to be people listening to this that are going to be like, the first part of the story sounds like sleep paralysis with being unable to move, seeing something terrifying, etc., etc. I know if Tim Cloak is listening to this, he'll be shuddering because I'm fairly sure his sleep paralysis incident was of a huge spider. But here's the thing, right? It makes sense to me that if you are having sleep paralysis, you are seeing some sort of horrific spider-human hybrid creature because your brain is creating something absolutely petrifying. It doesn't make sense to me, again, like I've said countless times, that bazillions of people all over the world are all seeing the same thing. It makes no sense to me that all of these people would be seeing the same Hat Man. It just doesn't make sense. In all of the millions of ways that our brains can terrify us based on childhood experiences, based on our own traumas, based on our own phobias, based on all the horror films and all the media that we consume, that everyone just creates a Hat Man in their brain. And look, maybe in this instance, the Hat Man was being protective, where he was like, get off my turf. Standing and watching people while they sleep is my business, and I'm not going to share that space with some sort of weird human spider hybrid. I did see someone on Spotify comment the other day and say, did she just call the Hat Man a nonce? Yeah, I did. Sorry, I'm not taking it back, okay? Because while Hat Man in this instance may be doing some of the protective, he's still standing around watching teenagers sleep. It's weird, okay? It's weird, it's not good for the optics. Get a new hobby. And our final story today comes from Kathy. I had my first ghostly encounter that I can remember at 26, and a few after. But there was something that happened when I was about 7 years old. We lived on a peninsula on the south shore of Boston. Every summer, the community on the hill, Drumlin, that we lived on would take the ferry to George's Island in Boston Harbour for a community picnic. The Boston Harbour Islands have old Civil War barracks on them. Edgar Allan Poe served on one of those barracks in the Boston Harbour Islands. According to my Northeastern University professor in the 1990s, there was a rumour that an unliked army captain was walled up somewhere in the Boston Harbour Islands. That Poe may have gotten the idea for the Cask of Amontillado while working as a soldier there. In the Cask of Amontillado, Montresor tells the story of how he tricks his enemy Fortunato into the wine cellar catacomb with the promise of Amontillado wine. Bottom line, the narrator has a grudge and issues with mental illness. He chains Fortunato and walls him up, as in builds a wall around him. But I digress. The point is, a lot of strange stuff happens during war and on the Boston Harbour Islands. So every summer the kids from our hill would explore the island while our parents picnicked and socialised. There were forts and old tunnels that linked together underground. The tunnels we barely explored as we were kids and didn't have flashlights or candles. This one summer when I was about 7, we decided to seek out the ghost called the Lady in Black. The story was the wife of a Confederate prisoner who rowed out to George's Island to where her husband was being held. She disguised herself as a soldier and hid with the other prisoners. She brought a pickaxe, and the soldier began to tunnel out when the Union soldiers were alerted by the noise. She was discovered and sentenced to hanging. She requested that she was to be hung in woman's clothes. The only clothes the Union soldiers found were a black robe, and she was hanged in that. The Lady in Black supposedly haunts the island fort and tunnels. In the 1970s, people didn't do precautions very well, as in it was okay for kids to be wandering around in 100-year-old underground forts and tunnels by themselves. My brothers and our neighbours, all boys between 6 and 10, decided to intentionally seek out the Lady in Black. I went too, as I was a follower. We entered through the cement opening. It was a hot summer's day, but was soon very cool, and the further we moved away from the opening, the darker and colder it got. The opening was just a pinhole of light. I grabbed my older brother's hand and he ripped it away. I begged, "Please hold my hand." "No." I grabbed his hand again and he ripped it away again. "I'm not holding your hand." It got very cold. I ran towards the pinhole of light until I was in the hot sun outside the fort. Seconds later, my brothers and neighbours came running out. "We saw her, we saw her, we saw the Lady in Black." They laughed. "No, we really saw her." I didn't see her. I didn't want to see her, but I believed them. It was dark and cold, and we were scared and excited going in. I remember the feeling of fear when I was in the tunnel and the disappearing light. I remember thinking I won't know which way would be out. It was so black you couldn't see anything. Not the walls, not the kid next to you couldn't see anyone. But they swore they saw her. Even to this day, they swore they saw her, and I still believe them. Yet, my brother doesn't believe me when I told him I saw a deceased friend the day before his funeral. Mike was the big brother I always wanted, as in he would have beaten up anyone for me. He was a protective guy. He was on the shorter side, but he had his own construction company and was very strong and not afraid of anyone. I got to know each member of his family at different times. I was a Girl Scout with his younger sister. Me and his younger brother were in the same social group for a while. I knew Mike from the neighbourhood guys, and my brothers were also friends with him. I'd see him a lot, as one of my brothers was roommates with him. Mike was also working on my parents' house where I lived. I was in my 20s when I went to college and lived at home. I made cookies a lot, and I'd bring up a plate for him when he was working in my parents' room. My room was right next to theirs, so when he was leaving, he'd lean his head in and smile and wave and say goodnight. He was riding his motorcycle one night and hit a patch of sand on a turn and flew off his motorcycle, dying instantly. It was a shock. For someone to be here and then not is confusing and sad. He was in his 20s. You just don't expect that. My family went to the closed casket wake. There were framed pictures of Mike on top. It was the first time I ever saw my dad cry. My mom seemed to always have access to her feelings, but I only saw my dad cry 3 times. After the wake, I went to bed and just cried and cried. My TV was on, so there was dappled light in the room, and I saw Mike in my doorway. He leaned in, gave me a sad smile, a nod and a small wave, and leaned out. I never had a visitation before, but I knew it was him. After the burial, I told my brother, the one that lived with Mike, about the visitation. He said flatly, "You were dreaming, that didn't happen." I said, "I dreamt that he leaned into my doorway, smiled sadly, waved and left." He nodded. "Yeah, that was a dream." I was pissed off, as I know what I saw. It was real. I wasn't scared. It was him, not a see-through ghostly Mike, but a solid human in my doorway. He looked so sad for me. He knew I needed him. When he died, I felt like I had lost my protector and friend. What I was upset about later was that my brother didn't believe me. I was 26 and I had seen something real. I believed their Lady in Black story, a story in which hyped up little kids go into a dark tunnel hoping to see a ghost and then saw one. A story that I still believe, and he couldn't believe that I saw Mike solid leaning into my doorway, sadly smiling and waving goodbye. That's what pisses me off. I mean, the first thing to say here is that you have a whole community of people who are listening to this story who will 100% believe you, and a whole community of people listening to this story who are able to resonate, who will have experienced something similar, who will find your story validating, who will feel like, oh, I had a similar story, that makes me feel like somebody else believes my story. And obviously, that doesn't make up for the fact that the person that you want to believe your story, you feel like they don't believe your story. And that's really, really difficult. Of course, it's really, really difficult. And I do think that the people that we love, that we lose, are people who then show up in a way that is really individual to us, right? So him popping his head around the door, smiling at you and saying goodbye, or like waving goodbye, is something that he did all the time when he was in your mum and dad's house. Do you know what I mean? So obviously it was so personal to you. And it's so hard when we lose someone that feels like a protector for us, that feels like it's somebody that just got you, that understood you, that you looked after you. It's so hard to lose that person, especially when you lose people young. And I was going to sit here and try and offer 1,000,001 explanations as to why it might seem like your brother doesn't believe you, or why he has chosen to say it was just a dream rather than kind of believing what happened to you. But I'm not going to do that. All I am going to say is that his inability to believe you or inability to engage with your story probably has more to do with him and his own sense of loss than anything to do with believing you. Sometimes when people are in the trenches, it is easier for them to just dismiss things rather than engage with them wholeheartedly, because sometimes engaging with things is far too painful. And again, that doesn't make somebody not believing you any less frustrating, because it is a horrible thing. And you feel like you're trying to explain yourself and over-explain yourself and trying to get your point across and prove your point of view. And that's hard. I do love the stories about George's Island, though. You know, I love the stories about Edgar Allan Poe. I love the story about the Lady in Black. Those are the type of legends associated with a place that just live on from generation to generation, and you've then got kids who are hunting down these ghosts on the island. And that type of storytelling, that kind of intergenerational storytelling, makes me really happy. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Mia, Cal and Kathy for sending in your stories. Remember, if you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website, reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or for $2 a month, you can get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.
If you're a smoker or vapor, ready to make a change, you really only need one good reason. But with Zyn nicotine pouches, you'll discover many good reasons. Zyn is America's #1 nicotine pouch brand. Plus, Zyn offers a robust rewards program. There are lots of options when it comes to nicotine satisfaction. But there's only one Zyn. Check out zyn.com/find to find Zyn at a store near you. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.